Welcome back to Market Headline. For more than 1 year facing the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of countries have actually experienced an increase in cases. Most recently, Singapore even decided to impose a lockdown until June 13, 2021. At the same time, Malaysia and Taiwan reimposed tightening and restrictions on a number of activities.
For more than 1 year facing the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of countries have actually experienced an increase in cases, one of which is Singapore, even implementing a number of new rules related to the restrictions to reduce the rate of spread of COVID-19. This rule applies May 16th to June 13th. During that period, the restaurant only served takeaway and delivery. Work-from-home activities are again becoming the standard for offices. Another country, Malaysia, has also returned to a national lockdown through the Moment Control Order or MCO movement. The lockdown is in effect from May 12 to June 7, 2021. This is the third time after March 2020 and January 2021. Malaysia is now in the midst of the third wave of the coronavirus awakening. Under the MCO, all forms of social gatherings, including weddings and banquets, are prohibited. All educational institutions are closed. Eating in restaurants is not permitted, and one car can only accommodate 3 people, including the driver. At the same time, Taiwan decided to raise its alert level for COVID-19 in Taipei and New Taipei after 180 cases of local transmission were found in the country. The Taiwanese government decided to ban gatherings and close many public places for the next 2 weeks. From all sources for IDX Channel.
The restrictions or lockdown policy was reintroduced as an effort to prevent the transmissions of the higher cases of COVID-19. And this time, a number of Asian countries have implemented tightening and lockdowns after the discovery of additional new daily cases. 3 among these countries are Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan. So, how is this policy implemented? Let's cover it in the following infographic. So here it is, starting from how Singapore implies the lockdown mode. Through the next graphic, we can see that actually the main reason on why Singapore does this because the sudden surge in unlinked community transmitted cases carrying the deadly B1617 variant. And also on May 14th, the Health Ministry recorded highest number of new daily cases since January 30 with 52 new COVID-19 infections. And part of the lockdown rules is that work from home must be default mode for all staff and only 2 people allowed in group movement, and also indoor group activities should be postponed or cancelled, and this is applied for May 16 to June 13, 2021. And yes, Singapore had been hailed as a success story in handling the COVID pandemic, but due to its low infections number. But several infections clusters popped up at hospitals and transport hubs, with unlinked cases surfacing in the community in late April. And this included a major cluster of 46 cases at Changi Airport Terminal 3, which prompted the local government to close Changi Airport's terminals and its Jewel shopping center to the public for 2 weeks. A mass swab testing of the airport workers and hospital staff is now underway. These new measures to stop the surge come just in 3 days after the Lawrence Wong, the head of the country's COVID task force, made a speech in front of the Singapore Parliament and said that Singapore was on a knife's edge where the COVID-19 transmissions within the community was concerned. From Singapore, we're shifting to Malaysia. How is the implementations of tightening movement there? Let's check to the next graphic. Here it is. We can see how Malaysia implements the lockdown, with the main reason is that to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the community and to prevent cases from rising sharply. And the country is battling the third wave of the COVID-19 infections as of May 17th, for the total cases hit around 474,000, with 1,947 deaths. And part of the movement control is that all forms of social gatherings are prohibited. work from home, no more than 30% of the staff present in the office, and dine in at a restaurant is not allowed. Yes, Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin said that the government has decided to take stricter steps to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the community and to prevent the cases from rising sharply. And under the MCO, all forms of social gatherings, including weddings and banquets, are all prohibited. And the ban also implies on the cross-district and interstate travel, as well as social, sports, and educational activities. For information, Malaysia is currently battling a third wave of COVID-19 infections, with a total death until May 18th hit 1,947 people. Meanwhile, a nationwide lockdown was first introduced in March last year, bringing the economic activities to grinding halt. A daily loss of 2.4 billion ringgit Malaysia, or 585 million US dollar, was estimated. And the lockdown was gradually eased and almost all economic sectors were allowed to resume, with localized measures implemented in areas with a spike in cases. And not only Singapore and Malaysia, Taiwan, which was also said to have successfully resisted the COVID-19 attack, has now decided to raise the level of vigilance. So let's check it into the next graphic. Here it is on how Taiwan strengthens national restrictions and measures against COVID-19 pandemic. Well, the main reason is that the increasing level of community transmissions that is shown by cases of unknown sources of infections. And the Central Epidemic Command Center, or CECC, raises pandemic alert level to the level of 3 of Taipei City and New Taipei City. And meanwhile, the restrictions and measures is about the closure of leisure and entertainment venue. Gathering over 5 people indoor and 10 people outdoors are suspended, and workplace should follow the epidemic prevention rules. After not requiring the use of masks, these items have now returned to be mandatory during the lockdown, and especially in the city of Taipei, which has the most cases of COVID-19. The Corona Alert status in Taiwan has also risen to level 3, and level 3 is warning before Taiwan's national lockdown. And previously, Taiwan was said to be a country that survived the Corona pandemic, only recording 1,682 cases out of the total population of 23 million, with a total death of 12 cases. And this Taiwan's success in fighting the coronavirus is closely related to strict border controls on the arrival entrances, and a ban on the entry of foreign visitors, and the mandatory quarantine for all Taiwanese who have recently returned from abroad. And although a number of Asian countries are in distress, Indonesia seems to be able to control the pandemic. So what makes Indonesia seems immune from the surge in the corona cases? Let's cover it in the next graphic. So here it is. The question is, how about Indonesia? We can see the test given by the government of, for example, Malaysia. The Malaysia conducted tests, around 330,000 tests per 1 million population. And if we compare to Singapore, Singapore conducts around 1,700,000 tests for 1 million populations. And then if we move on to Indonesia's data, Indonesia only conducted tests around 56,000 tests per 1 million population. And continuing the previous question, what makes Indonesia seem immune from the surge in the corona cases in the Southeast Asia region? It seems that it is related to the number of the tests. It must be admitted that the number of the tests in Indonesia is not as massive as in neighboring countries. The number of tests per 1 million populations of Indonesians is relatively low, and compared to the 5 Asian countries, even less than Cambodia. When the number of the tests is low, it is not surprising that are also few cases found. And therefore, the Indonesian people should not be complacent, especially in the midst of pandemic that seems under control, where it should be noted that the data is obtained from a relatively small number of tests compared to the other countries. And on the ground, it could be a more worrying situation. And therefore, the government is obliged to boost testing, tracing, treatment plus vaccinations. And the public is also obliged to continue to adhere to the health protocol by wearing masks, maintaining distance, and washing hands with soap. And yes, viewers, hopefully all countries are able to do their best in handling the pandemic. And of course, hopefully the pandemic will end soon. And stay with us because market headlines will be right back after this quick break.